Hello, fellow grammarians. Today, we're going to talk to you about subjects and predicates again, but this time we're going to add something more to it. We're going to make it a little more interesting. So, before we can actually move forward, a little review. First thing you need to remember is that a sentence is a complete thought, and a complete thought has to have a subject and a predicate. It has to have someone or something doing or being something. And so, someone or something doing or being. It's a pretty basic concept, and so let's just remind you how we do it. The first thing we always find is the predicate, then we find the subject. We do that by simply asking what's happening in the sentence. So my example is, Mr. Burby works from home right now. And the answer to the predicate, or what is being done, is works. So this is the predicate. And that's what I'm doing. I'm working. And so now we go, who or what works? And we know that Mr. Burby is the one working, so that's going to be the subject of the sentence. So basically, all I do is I ask what's happening in the sentence, that's the verb, and then I ask who or what, and that's the subject. And so remember that a subject is usually going to be a noun or a pronoun. It's going to be a person, place, quality, idea, or thing. And a predicate is going to be a verb or a verb phrase, and that's when you have anything like is, am, are, was, were, in addition to, let's put were right, in addition to a main verb. So you might have words like is working, and that is a verb phrase, and that would work here too. And that's two words. One has a helping verb, and the other one is helping it, and the other one's the main verb. So that's how that works. Cool. All right, so today's lesson is going to be about the word compound. And so we'll start with compound subjects. Compound subjects. The word compound means it means one or more. Usually, basically, when I say compound, it's actually two or more. So if it's compound, it's at least two. And then if it's more than that, and that's possible, you could have three or even four or even five different subjects in a sentence. Most of the time you don't. But for compound subjects, sometimes you may want to show that two or more subjects are performing the same action, or that the same subject is doing two or more things. To do this, you connect the subjects or verbs with words like and or. And subjects or verbs get connected in this way are said to be compound. So these are key terms for you, and, or, but, and nor. Today, right now, we'll talk about compound subjects. A compound subject consists of two or more connected subjects that have the same exact verb. The usual connecting words, again, are and or. So those are the things I look for. Here's some examples. Paris and London are favorite tourist attractions. Well, the first thing I do is I look for the verb, by the way. That's are, form of the verb to be. And who or what are? Paris and London. They're both favorite tourist attractions. So that would be a subject and that would be a subject. So you can have more than one. The two parts of the compound subject have the same verb, are. Here's another one. Costumes, makeup, scenery, and props are needed for the production of a play. These are longer sentences, obviously, if they have compound subjects or predicates. So we'll say, okay, what's the verb? I always look for the verb. And in this case, it's a verb phrase, are needed, or just are. So that's your verb, that's your predicate. And you're going to say, who or what are? Well, costumes are, and makeup are, and scenery are, and props are. Those are all subjects. It has four. Okay? All of those four parts have the same verb phrase. And so we have to make sure we're counting them all, not just one of them. We have to do them all. Marie Ellis and John Schwartz, well, I think I spelled Schwartz wrong, will go on the field trip with us. And we have two parts here. Will go is your verb phrase. And who or what will go? Well, obviously John is going to go, but so is Marie. So again, you have a compound subject. And so now it would be kind of cool if we could actually work on the next part, and let's do these together. John and Aiden placed first and second in the relay race. Well, I know placed has an ed, so that's probably a verb. Also, if I just go through it and ask myself, can I do each one of those? The only one I can do is placed, so that's my verb. And the second thing we do is we ask who or what of the verb. In this case, John placed first and Aiden placed second. So we have two subjects, a compound subject with a single verb placed. Next one, Mr. Estes and Mr. Burby advise the BCS Student Council. As I look through all of these, the first thing I'm going to do is look for the verb. I'm going to look for the action. And the only one I can find here that has an action that I can think of doing would be advising. And so that's going to be the verb, the predicate. And then I ask who or what. Well, it's not a what, it's a who. It's two who's. Mr. Estes and Mr. Burby both advise that council. And so those are going to be the subjects of advise. And the last one, Ms. Estes and Ms. Ricker are really good friends. Well, are is the verb, and I can't emphasize to you how many times are and is and am and was and were are going to be the verb. It's just the most common verb in our language. It's the state of being verb. And so who or what are? And in this case, well, Ms. Estes and Ms. Ricker are both really good friends. So, again, compound subjects can have a single verb, and there can be more than one, okay? That's all you need to remember. You need to remember that more than one person, place, thing, quality, or idea can be doing something together. Cool. All right, let's look at the next one. So now that we have compound subjects, you probably is no surprise at all to you that you can have compound predicates too. And some teachers like to separate these, but I like to do them all at once. Why not? In for a penny, in for a pound. You got the idea that a compound is two or more. Okay? So, just as a sentence may have a compound subject, so it may have a compound predicate. And a predicate is another word for the verb. And when two or more verbs or verb phrases are joined by, again, the magic joining words, we call these conjunctions, by the way, and, or, nor, and but, the combination is called a compound verb. And a compound predicate or compound verb consists of two or more connected verbs that have the same subject, and they're always connected by and, or, but, or nor. There might be some other words in between, but that one's always there. So let's take a look at the examples to make this easier for you. That dog either barked or whined all night. Well, the first thing I'm looking for is the action of any verb, of any sentence. And when I look at it, I also look for these kind of telltale signs of a verb, because verbs have tenses, and ed is the past tense when we add ed. And so we know that that is going to be happening. Both of those are verbs. And notice or is linking them together. It's the conjunction. It joins them. Then I ask myself, who or what barked? The dog. So we have a compound verb that's doing two things, okay? Two things are being done, and that dog is doing those two things. Ginny pitched well, but lost the game. Well, okay. We know it. I put it in bold for you, so it's not hard to figure out, but still, pitched and lost. You can pitch and you can lose. You can do more than one thing in a sentence. Well, who pitched? Who lost? In this case, it's the same person, and that same person is Ginny. She's the subject of pitched and lost. She did both. She pitched and she lost. And again, we have this joining word of but, and that's a conjunction, and it's a good clue or hint for you. When you see those, that's a possibility. The rain has fallen for days and is flooding the low areas. Well, the first thing I'm going to do again is look for the verb, and that's the predicate. In this case, it's verb phrases, both of them using helping verbs, has and is. And so what I ask myself is now, what is happening here? Well, the rain has fallen and the rain is flooding. So the rain would be the subject. With that in mind, let's take a look at the other examples. So the team pleased... Oh, that should be played. Wow, I typed that wrong. It should be played. Okay. The team played well but lost the game. What's happening in this sentence? Well, what's happening in this sentence, take a minute and look at it. You'll see that there are two things happening. You can play and you can lose. So you got two verbs, played and lost. And who or what played and lost? Well, the team did both. It's the subject. In the afternoons, most campers either swim or play softball. I'm looking for an action here. And again, I'm going to look through it, and the only thing I can see here for actions are swimming, and I can see playing. And I even have this magical joining word called a conjunction, hooking them together. So I know that's the verb. That's the compound verb. So now I have to ask myself, well, who or what swim or play? And it looks to me like it's campers that are doing that. So that's the subject of that compound verb. And the last one, for example right now, is Mr. Richards listened to my story and offered me some good advice. And what I'm looking at here, again, is verbs, and I'm looking for anything that clues me in, and if it can happen, if it can be done, it's a verb. But I also look for ed or es or ing, and so listened, and then I have that magical and offered. So I can look at that. I have a compound verb. I've got two of them. Now, who or what offered? And it's the wonderful Mr. Richards, so he's the subject. And I have a compound verb, compound predicate, with a single subject. Cool. Now, to put it all together and to bring everything to home, you need to know that you can have sentences that have both. Can you believe that? You can have sentences that actually have both compound subject and compound predicates. So in this case, a sentence may have both a compound subject and a compound predicate, and another word for a predicate is verb. And this means that a pair of verbs can have two or more subjects. And you don't see these all that often, but you will see them. They're very complex sentences. And of course, very young people, very young children don't write complex sentences, but older people do. You will be. So it's good to know you can do it. You probably do it. You just don't realize you're doing it. Here's an example. A few vegetables and many flowers sprouted and grew in the rich soil. So the first thing I'm looking for are the verbs, and I know again that it has to happen. It has to be an action or a state of being. Sprouted and grew, past tense. Those are both verbs. Now I ask myself, what sprouted and grew? Well, I know that vegetables did it, but so did flowers. So I got two subjects along with two verbs, and they share it. In other words, vegetables sprouted and grew, flowers sprouted and grew, and so you basically have two subjects with two verbs, and they're both all together like a happy family. It's crazy. Let's do the next one. Pam and Sue bought peanuts and fed the squirrels. Well, bought and fed, those are things you can do, and so we're going to give that our appellation of a verb or a predicate, and then we ask who or what of those. So who bought and who fed? Two people did it, Pam and Sue. And again, look at that. You got and, which is a conjunction, and that always usually joins our compound subjects and predicates. All right, cool. So let's do our examples together. Maria and Joan either walk to school or take the bus. I'm looking for actions. I'm looking for verbs, and those verbs will be the predicate. And I look through this, and I take a moment, and I think about it, and I go, well, you can't Maria, you can't Joan. Oh, I see and. That's cool. Going to look at that. Or there's another one. So we got some things going on. Now I'm looking to go, I can walk, and I can take. So those are my verbs. Who or what can walk or take? Because remember, you always find the verb, then ask who or what. Well, Maria and Joan either walk or take. So again, we have two people doing one of two things. At dawn, heavy rains and strong winds struck the beach and damaged houses. So as I look through this again, I'm looking for any key words that might help me, knowing that a clue word would be and I have that twice, so it's going to be connecting two things. And then I'm going to say, okay, what's the verb? Well, rain could be a verb, but in this case it's not because there's an S. I'm going to say winds, and rains probably are the subjects, but struck and damaged. So I'm going to say struck and damaged, and who or what struck and damaged? Okay, that's rains and winds struck and damaged. As you do this more and more, you're going to find out how easy it is. You'll start finding the subjects before you start finding the verbs, which is kind of cool. And this is almost like any kind of puzzle that you start doing. I've often thought that if you could do this and think of it as a puzzle, it makes it a little easier. Every sentence is like a little puzzle you can take apart. So that's how we do compound subjects and compound predicates. We ask who or we find the verb, then we ask who or what. And it's the same way that we did it with the simple subjects and predicates. Same thing. And this is about as complex as subjects and predicates get, but I need you to be able to do this. So good luck, and there are 2 forms you need to do, as well as 1 IXL exercise, and then we'll be done with subjects and predicates, and we can move on. So, okay guys, I'll see you later. And this is Mr. Verby signing out.